Hello and welcome to Camp Xbox. In the 6th generation, there was a war for fighting games, specifically 3D fighting games. Mortal Kombat and Dead or Alive were some top dogs in the genre, and Soulcalibur is another notable one. Soulcalibur II was a strong entry, releasing exclusive characters on all 3 home consoles with Link from The Legend of Zelda, Heihachi from Tekken on PS2, and Spawn for the Xbox. I recently played through the game and will give you some history, tell you how I felt about it, and its lasting impact. All footage was captured from an original Xbox, and I want to thank my YouTube channel members for their support. I also want to say that this was a recommendation from Lover of Green. Thank you very much for the recommendation, and let's go ahead and hop into this one.
Now, 2 souls are fiercely entangled. My, aren't we come?
Alright, let's get this over with.
Final battle, fight!
The Soulcalibur series dates back to 1996 when Namco released Soul Edge, or as it's known outside of Japan, Soul Blade, and it was released for arcades. Namco made the game in an attempt to explore a 3D weapon-based fighter. The game was very popular, and eventually it was ported to the PlayStation where it had continued success. In 1998, Namco released the sequel, Soulcalibur, to arcades. In 1999, that game was ported to the Dreamcast, and this version of the game took that game and added a greater range of movement and many more improvements, and it was a smash success. It was given multiple Game of the Year awards, and still to this day, Soulcalibur is considered one of the greatest games of all time and is on the list of the best critically reviewed games according to Metacritic. It was a no-brainer for Namco to develop a sequel to Soulcalibur. In 2001, Namco confirmed that a new Soulcalibur was coming, and they announced that Soulcalibur II would be a multi-platform release for Xbox, PS2, and GameCube. This was well before its release because the central part of development was focused on the arcade release coming in 2002 to Japan and North America. Along the way, Heihachi, Spawn, and the biggest announcement, Link, were coming to the consoles. I remember hearing about Link coming to a fighting game other than Smash, and I couldn't believe it. Heihachi actually was originally going to be Cloud Strife from Final Fantasy VII, but unfortunately that didn't work out. But Spawn, however, worked because Todd McFarlane, the creator of the Spawn comics, had made an original character for consoles named Necrid, and his company worked on the action figures for the game. Almost a year after the arcade launch, Soulcalibur II was released on August 26, 2003 on the 3 major consoles in North America. It had already been released in Japan in March, and it was released in Europe later in September. I remember seeing this game on shelves, and it always excited me, but unfortunately I never picked this one up. However, I remember playing this one at friends' houses, and it was a staple of many sleepovers. So I was excited to get this recommendation and see how it's held up. I want to preface my review by saying that fighting games are the hardest to review on my channel. I do love fighting games, but I don't think I am an expert on many of them. Soulcalibur is one I enjoy casually, but never at a professional or competitive level. So if you're a pro at this game and know a lot of small details about it, you might see some small things not get into this review because there's so much nuance to the game design. So take this review as someone who enjoys fighting games, but is not a seasoned professional. But let's go ahead and hop into this review. Soulcalibur II is a 3D fighting game with a focus on the weapons each of the fighters use. You go into a 3D arena, and each character has a set of moves you can use to take on another in a 1v1 fight. Soulcalibur does a great job of using its 3D space to the best possible use. Movement is smooth, and even though you always face the opponent, the freedom of movement is excellent. The game always lets you move any way you need to. One of my favorite elements is the ring out system, which allows you to hit opponents enough off the stage to win the round. It's been done many times before, but it's still as satisfying as ever and a great way to end a round early. The fighting mechanics in Soulcalibur II are pitch perfect. This game has 3 primary attacks: slashes that move horizontally, slashes that move vertically, and kicks. And those can be broken down into high, low, or mid hits. You can use special inputs on the stick to get special moves, and you hit those to do combos. You can also do throws as well. All of this is simple fighting game stuff, and you'll see it in a lot of places, but Soulcalibur II takes these elements and makes a fast and fluid system out of it. Soulcalibur II is simply one of the best feeling 3D fighters available in the 6th generation. Every character in this game feels fluid, with many unique moves that make every fight completely different when swapping between characters. All of them work well, and fighting in this game feels great. It's not slow and methodical, but it's also not extremely fast. I think it meets somewhere in the middle to make something thoughtful, yet has a speed with it that keeps it intense. Pulling all the moves together and learning a character is always a joy, and it's crafted perfectly. It's an addicting fighting game. It helps that every character is fun to play. This game has a roster where every character has something unique about them that makes their playstyle exciting. In fighting games, it's easy to find characters that repeat or are just bland to play, but every character has a unique feeling that makes them enjoyable. One of my favorite parts of this game is hopping from character to character and seeing what each brings. Each having different weapons makes them feel varied and fresh, especially when you start digging into the various unlockable weapons that give you unique stats in fights. I love that this game is straightforward to pick up and play. You don't need a deep understanding of its mechanics to win games. In its main mode, Weapon Master Mode, it slowly becomes harder and harder as the challenge ramps up, but it teaches you new skills to get you ready for the more challenging AI. It teaches elements such as guard impacts, which allow you to deflect attacks if you time it correctly. It also teaches you the soul charge, which has you powering up for stronger moves in a risk and reward system. There is depth here, but it does a great job introducing you to those elements as the game progresses. Soulcalibur II is a fluid and excellent playing fighting game. The way each character moves and attacks feels right and responsive. To me, it's one of the most addicting fighting games that you can get on the console, based solely on its fighting mechanics. It makes it perfect for long multiplayer nights where everyone feels like they're on level playing fields. And it's excellent alone too, with some solid AI to fight. It's a great playing experience on the Xbox. And throw in that the Xbox gets the exclusive character Spawn from the comic series, and I think he's a good bit of fun. He is a giant dude and he looks tanky, but he still flows quite nicely. I don't think it's as great of an addition as the GameCube got with Link, but it's still a fun and welcome addition to the game. A fighting game can feel great, but an essential thing to me is keeping your interest in things to do with the fighting mechanics. It's something that Soulcalibur II has down, with tons of unlockables for game modes, weapons, and characters. The game has so much to do, and is more than just a fighting game to play with friends. It feels like a game you can constantly go back to just to see what you will unlock next. Soulcalibur's main game mode is Weapon Master Mode, where you will unlock most of the content to play. In Weapon Master Mode, you get a map laid out for you, and you hop from location to location, taking on specific challenges. It's nice and varied, asking you to do things like only juggle opponent with hits to do damage, or face off against opponents who constantly heal. My favorite sections are the dungeons, where you must fight against opponents room by room. It's an endurance challenge to go from one end of the dungeon to the other to beat it, but there's also side rooms to earn unlockables. It's fun and rewarding, and it adds depth to the experience. This mode also adds a nice little story to the game. Here you get long text passages between chapters and before fights, explaining where you are along the story. A nice touch is that you don't have to play one character, but you can swap between any character you want to play in this story. The plot is greatly expanded here, about finding pieces of the Soul Edge, which is the evil equivalent of the Holy Soulcalibur. It's a fine story, and it's good for a read. I won't say I was enthralled by it, but it's a good simple story that helps move the game along. I think the plot is handled at its best in the arcade mode, which consists of quick dialogue and cutscenes. The arcade mode is what you would expect from a game like this, having you face off against enemies over and over, and it's great for a quick burst of fun, and you unlock models to look at for each character. There's also a bunch of other game modes, like a survival mode, a team battle mode where you have to use multiple characters. There's so much to do, and I don't think any of it is mediocre. All are great to play, especially because you get to mess around with great characters and fighting mechanics. A cool feature in some of these game modes is that you can take all of the weapons you buy and unlock from Weapon Master mode that give you special stats can be used in extra game modes to experiment with the different weapons. Having every weapon unlocked in the multiplayer seems like a great way to have a game night. Not only does Soulcalibur have great gameplay, but it has an excellent and varied selection of modes to play in. Soulcalibur II has the ability to run at 720p on the Xbox, and it looks incredible. It does also have 16:9 widescreen support, but it can't do both, with 16:9 only being supported by 480p. This is completely fine though, and I think either way you play this game, it's going to look great. I normally play in 720p though, which is what this footage is made up of. It looks spectacular. The colors are bright and pop on screen, with each stage having excellent lighting and style. The character models are the true showcase in this game, with every character having a great degree of movement. The animation for everyone is fluid, which is important in a fighting game, and each of their movements have great personality. It can go down to how they sway when they enter the stage, or how hard they might swing their weapon. Every character has multiple costumes to swap through too, and it gives every fighter a unique and great personality. I think it works with the game because this game is more focused on the character, and that being the important part of the experience. The stages look excellent too, with a great sense of color and look. There's a lot of unique locales and locations to fight in, and I love the style. It has a regal feeling and is very bright, which gives this game a standout look on the console. The fact that all of this can be displayed in gorgeous 720p, and you have a recipe for one of the best looking fighting games that you can play on the Xbox. Soulcalibur has a solid sound design when it comes to a fighting game. The hits all sound great, and the punches matched with the grunts make sure that every hit feels satisfying. There's also a copious amount of voice lines recorded for each character. If you go into the model section, you can go through each character's voice lines, and there's so many grunts and one words that can be uttered in this game. It's a lot of cheesy stuff, but it makes the experience fun and adds a personal touch to every character. The score composed for this game is excellent and might be one of the best in the franchise. If you like big, bombastic orchestral music, this will be right up your alley. It loves using horns, which add to the regal feel of the experience and makes it feel like an epic. The soaring strings and cinematic flair is unique to this game, and it's adventurous. I think the way it matches up with the fights gives this gameplay an extra oomph to make it addicting and to keep it a strong experience. The main theme that plays is also great, and it's a soundtrack well worth listening to outside of the game. Overall, Soulcalibur II is an excellent 3D fighting game not only on the Xbox, but in the 6th generation. The weapon-based combat is not only unique, but it's smooth and fluid. The gameplay feels excellent and it's easy for anyone to pick up, but also has many dedicated fans that can break down this game's many different mechanics. There's so much to do with the gameplay too, with an excellent variety in game modes, and also has an excellent main story mode that can be completed in a few hours, but it's so easy to hop right back into. The music is excellent as well as the sound design, and it all looks incredible on the Xbox with a great high fidelity. Soulcalibur II is all around an excellent package, and is one of my favorite fighting games in the generation, and if you've never played it, then you really should give it a shot. On my ranking list, Soulcalibur II is going in at number 14 out of the 90 games I've covered on this channel. This one might be a bit controversial, but I do enjoy it more than Dead or Alive 3. Both are extremely strong, but I love Soulcalibur's Weapon Master mode. I do, however, think that Morrowind is more replayable and has left a stronger lasting impact on me with how much it offers. Soulcalibur II received extremely high praise. On Metacritic, the Xbox version holds a Metascore of 92, making it one of the best reviewed games on the platform. It actually puts it in the top 20 on the Xbox based on Metascore. If you look at review scores, you're going to mainly see 9 out of 10s or higher with a few outliers. GameSpot was an outlier, giving it an 8.5, saying it was a great fighter, but not as revolutionary as the first. And if you're going to see criticisms at the time, it's mainly that criticism that it's just not as good as the first, but still people thought highly of it. IGN gave it a 9.2, saying it was the same excellent gameplay. An official Xbox magazine in their November 2003 issue gave it a 9.2, praising the gameplay and the amount of things to do. Soulcalibur II was as much of a hit in stores as it was with critics. The Xbox version sold well enough to receive a Platinum Hits Edition and received the Greatest Hits Editions and Player Choice Editions for the other consoles. I remember people loving this game, and I loved when I got to play it when I was younger, and the Soulcalibur franchise still has games to this day. Though I do find it interesting that Soulcalibur III was only released in arcades and PS2 and never saw an Xbox or GameCube release. Yet the series would return to Xbox with its 4th entry and every subsequent numbered entry up into the most recent, which was the 6th one in 2018. Soulcalibur II specifically would get an HD remaster released in 2013 for both PS3 and 360 that retains the same modes, which allows you to play Heihachi and Spawn in the same game. It also added online play, which is an extra little bit of fun to the package. Soulcalibur II is fondly remembered by many to this day and is one of those staple fighting games of the 6th generation. On the user aggregate website Backlogged, it holds a 4.0 with 170 plays for the Xbox version, with many people throwing out praise for Spawn. It's understandable that it's held such a high status to this day, because it's a very fun experience. But that wraps it up for today, and if you enjoyed this video, please leave a like as it helps out the channel. Comment below with any Soulcalibur II memories or Soulcalibur in general, I would love to hear from you. Subscribe to keep up with the retro Xbox content, and I want to give a huge shout out to my YouTube channel members, campers, and camp counselors. Thank you so much for your support, you really help the channel out, and I'll see you here next time at Camp Xbox.